Hey everybody, happy Sunday. I hope that wherever you are and whatever you are doing, you are having an amazing weekend. It is raining here at the house. It's Thursday evening when I'm recording this, and the camera is currently attached to a press vehicle that we are in the process of reviewing. If you watched Transport Evolved shorts, you'll know that it is in fact the Hummer EV. And I've got to say, I don't think I've ever reviewed a vehicle before that I've taken an instant dislike to as much as I feel dislike towards the Hummer EV. It's basically everything that the original Hummer was, just more and electric. And I just don't see the point in it. I don't see the point in the Watts to Freedom or anything else to that matter. And it just feels like a massive excess. And there is a reason why I'm mentioning massive excesses, and that is because of the topic of today's Sunday Musing, namely the French government's beginning to challenge the legality of short-haul flights and, more importantly, I think, private jets. Now, the French government has wanted to ban private jet short-haul flights for some time now. It's just been given the go-ahead by the European Commission to start that process. That's at least as I understand it. We covered it in 10 yesterday. And it's a very important step, I think, in trying to decarbonize the world that we live in. Obviously, if you are watching this in North America, you may be worried about the fact that short-haul flights might be getting cancelled in some parts of the world. But the reality is, if you live in Europe, it's quicker very often to take a high-speed, efficient, renewable energy generated, or rather renewable energy powered electric train from one city to another than it is to drive to the airport, to sit in the airport for 2 hours, to go through security, to get on your plane and fly to your destination. So much so, in fact, that when I used to live in the UK, it took me less time to get a train from Bristol in the southwest of England to London, go to St Pancras station, check in for a Eurostar, get on the Eurostar, and then take the Eurostar all the way to Belgium to then get off the train in Belgium and go to, there was a test track not far from there where I used to go sometimes, I think with Ford and a couple of other companies, to do media events. It was often quicker for me to go that way than it was for me to drive from my house in Bristol to Heathrow Airport and deal with the traffic on the M4, to then have to check in 3 hours ahead of schedule, because at Heathrow that's considered normal. You check in 3 hours before rather than 2 because traffic is always bad and getting through airport security is always bad. Spending 3 hours at the airport before your flight, then getting on your plane, flying to your destination, hanging around for bags or whatever, and then finally getting to your destination was a lot more complicated and a lot more stressful than just taking the train. And so in Europe, short-haul flights are really about getting there quicker, although sometimes they're no faster. I mean, certainly for me, it was quicker for me to take the train, and then I could work on the train as well because there was, network connectivity on the train for my entire trip. I could get up, I could walk around, I could go to the loo, I could carry as much or as little luggage as I wanted to on the train. But when you have a plane, we've got used to the concept that planes are better and quicker if we need to go somewhere else in a hurry. And in North America, I'll grant you, short haul is sometimes still the quickest way. So for example, if I want to go from here, Portland, Oregon, to Reno, Nevada, it takes me a lot less time going by plane than it would be going by car, because there's no real direct route for me to take. I'd have to go over the mountain passes. In winter, that's always a little bit questionable. But certainly a better analogy would be the 200 miles or so it takes to go from where I live all the way up to Seattle. You can do that by train, you can do that by car, or you can fly. And again, if I was to fly to Seattle, The overall travel time wouldn't necessarily be much more or much less than taking the train or taking the car, but it would be a whole lot more hassle for me as a person to go from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, because you have to go to the airport, which is an hour's drive for me. Well, I could be halfway to Seattle by then. Coming back from Seattle always takes longer because you always hit the rush hour coming out of Seattle. So, you know, it swings and roundabouts. My partner went to Seattle last Friday, for an appointment, and it took her all day. But for the most part, it would take you all day if you flew. So I am in favour of banning short haul flights, and definitely in favour of banning executive private jet flights. And a lot of you watching will go, yeah, but people like Elon Musk need to go from point A to point B quickly so that they can run their business, end quote. And the reality, I think, and I know Elon Musk would definitely not agree with me on this, is that we have got to a point now where we've got really good telecommunication protocols. Zoom has improved incredibly over the last 2 to 3 years because of the pandemic, because of improvements in internet technology and communications technology. We can now have teleconference presence at a lot of things. And while, you know, there's no substitute in a lot of ways for actually physically going somewhere, meeting with someone, going out to dinner with them and doing the whole schmoozy business thing that is so common in C-level at businesses, I think we need to encourage business leaders, business owners to work more remotely in the future, and to maybe delegate more, and to work with local employees who are in the area and hand off some of those responsibilities to those employees to ultimately reduce our carbon footprint. You know, another great example here in the US, Walmart has a massive corporate private jet fleet because Walmart wants to send its executives from its headquarters all the way over America and have them come back home for the evening, or maybe do like a one-night stopover. They'd much rather do that than put people on commercial plane trips, which would take a lot longer. But the reality is the carbon emissions of those private jets, absolutely astronomical, when we really should be encouraging telecommuting instead. And there are very few instances, I'd argue, unless you are going to sample something or you're going to physically inspect a product off a production line, there are very few situations where you actually need to go somewhere and do something. My career, my industry is one such example. It's very difficult for me to remotely drive a car, for example. Luckily, the cars come to me a lot of the time. But if there's a press launch, I generally have to go to the place. Although even we are going to do it for CES. We're not going to CES next year. We're going to cover it remotely for the reason that it's too costly, too much of a health risk for everybody, and it's a massive carbon footprint for us to go. Even if we drive in an EV, we still have to consider, you know, all of the emissions that takes that into consideration. So I would love to know your thoughts below, how you feel about this all, because I think that France is onto something, and I would love to know if you think that more countries around the world need to actually start banning corporate fleets, private jets, and also short haul flights, and just encourage the adoption and the supporting of more equitable, lower carbon alternatives. I know that trains in Europe are not necessarily always very affordable, especially in the UK, but I think it would be much better and much easier to build an affordable, robust rail network than it would be for us to continue to pollute the planet with fossil fuels. Of course, the other alternative is electric airplanes for short haul flights, which I'm totally okay with. And on that note, we are done with today's video. If you liked it, you know what to do, and feel free to tip us with a super thanks. The comments are open for your thoughts, as is our Discord chat room. Links are below. If you want more, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and follow the links to regularly support this channel with a YouTube membership or a Patreon subscription. You'll also find links below to Ko-fi, Bitcoin, and our swag store. And check us out on Mastodon because we have our own server. It's very cool. Scrolling on my right is our amazing list of charged up supporters, and shout outs go out to our self-driving tier supporters: Mike Weeder, Patrick Boyarski, Chris Maxwell, Brian Newton, Michael Goad, Bennett Elder, Zelda, Andrew Martin, Pedro Mura Pinheiro, Brophy Wolf, Chris and Michael Johnson, Taslet in the Gong, Dan Blair, Peter Dillinger, Gordon C, Stephen O'Donoghue, Carl Hodgson, Anthony Coates, Raging Fellows, Denny Hyde, Chris Asenta and Jim Burness. Finally, out of this world thanks to our Starman level supporters, Andrew Glenn, Anonymous Freak, JP Fagerback, Joe Bresney, John Lyons, Rory Litwin, Kevin Boroughbridge, Dave Kitchen, Laura Reynolds, Marcel Ward, Matthew Drobnak, Paul Conway, Reggie Watts, Will Graylin, and last but not least, Ian. I will be back soon with more awesome content, as will the rest of the team, but until then, stay dry, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and as always, keep evolving.